Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. I got the baseball stadium behind me. I probably should put the football stadium behind me, but I love the sky and the beautiful spring feel that we have here. And we are going to be sprung into the world of NFL.com and who's on the clock and who are we taking. Dennis Koulatsos, the draft hadn't even started, and it's already turned into something that's got my blood moving a little bit, right?
Yeah, anytime the Ravens were able to execute a blockbuster trade just a week before the draft takes place, it's great news for the fan base, right? It gets us excited. We have 2 first-round draft picks potentially for the 5th time in franchise history, and typically when the Ravens have that kind of draft capital, 9 total great things, intriguing things happen. You've got to watch the entire round. A few years ago when they drafted Lamar Jackson, a lot of our brethren had fallen asleep already before midnight, and those of us who stayed up until the very last
Am I part of your brethren?
Yes, you are.
Was I didn't fall asleep on purpose. I fell asleep literally with my laptop on my. I mean, I'll never forget it. I fell asleep with my laptop like back, and I jarred up, and there's the kid in the green suit with the purple bird. That's an all timer for me, right? That'll never happen again.
Great stuff. Must see television, especially now with Eric DaCosta. He's shown more of a propensity to trade picks and more of an attitude or an appetite rather to trade picks rather than Najee Newsome. He can move up. He can move down. 2 picks in the first round. A lot of things could happen. A lot of things will happen. And also what happens in front of the Ravens, which will add further intrigue to the draft.
Dennis Koulatsos is here. He is a Coons forward at Security Boulevard. He'll be here on Thursday from 3 until 5. The draft pregame. Hopefully there's no more deals going on then, but you never know. And, of course, heard on Sundays as well here. You and I were together when the tech service threw the trade out on Friday afternoon, and Luke was behind that. Luke and I went toe-to-toe. You can go out to BaltimorePositive.com. We disagree on this deal.
Wow. Okay.
And I hadn't talked to anyone, and I was sort of I was not an Orlando Brown guy. Like, I just wasn't. I mean, I liked his dad better than him. I've said that. Probably that's an indictment unto itself that, if the kid wants out, let him out. And I found this to be fascinating, that they dealt him to a place where they're going to have to go beat him. They dealt him to a place where they're going to give him a lot of money, and we're not, so it's going to mess with their cap. They dealt him to a place where Chiefs didn't want him to be a left tackle a couple years ago. No one did. So I look at Orlando Brown a little bit of maybe a product of this system, and Luke keeps saying 2-time Pro Bowl or 2-time, and I'm like, okay, well, Eric DaCosta and the folks out in Owings Mills didn't just decide to deal him to get, I don't want to say king's ransom, but I feel like they got overcompensated. I feel like the Ravens won this deal on paper. We'll find that out, right? Now, if Ronnie Stanley doesn't come back and he's got a pin in his leg and he can't play and it's a mess, and Orlando Brown puts in, 4 Super Bowls in the next 6 years out there, okay, I will say I was wrong in 2027. But at this point, as fast as they dealt him, what they got for him, the fact that they weren't going to sign him, the fact that he was a malcontent. Malcontent is what I call somebody that goes on the internet and bitches about their job. That's a malcontent to me. And I figure it's addition by subtraction. That's how I feel about it. I love the 31st pick. I love the powder in the keg. I love the fact that the Ravens are bullish on this draft when others are a little bit more tepid because they feel like they're smarter than everyone else and they've done the work. Where are you on this? What did you think on Friday, Dennis?
Well, I'll break the tie, and for me, it's not even close. Like you, I don't think he's that good of a player. Just because he made the Pro Bowl 2 years in a row doesn't mean a whole lot to me. He doesn't have the feet, first of all, to play left tackle. He caught lightning in the bottles as did the Ravens. He was in the right system, right place, right time, at right tackle. And he's always had trouble, and he will always have trouble with speed rushers. I think it was Eric DaCosta. Look, he dealt them to a rival thinking that he can get an edge rusher to beat this kid at left tackle.
There's no question about that.
So it's like
I said to Luke, I said, I've run a business for 30 years. If you came to me and said, I don't want to be here anymore, I may hang on a week or 2 or a month until I figure it out. But like, if you don't want to be here, you shouldn't be here. If I'm on a date and you want to wash your hair, go wash your hair. I'll figure out dessert. Like, I'm not I would think that the Ravens would be John Harbaugh and that offensive line room. You don't want to be here. We're gonna we probably don't want you here. And that's because you can't win that way. You can't win with people who are looking over the fence at where they want to go with their next deal or the next contract. I think they had enough. I think that and I don't know anything. And I said this to Luke. I don't talk to anyone out there the way I used to. I don't know the real vibe of how they felt about the kid. I was never high on the kid. And 31 other teams weren't high on him when they didn't pick him. And he came in here, and the minute something went well for him, he wanted out. And I'm 52. I read that differently as a person, as an employer, as a partner who's been walked out on, and like all of that. Like I I feel really good about what they did, and let the media have at it. The Kansas City people are calling me and saying, "What happened here?" and all that. And I'm thinking, Chiefs just got fleeced by the Ravens, and it's going to take a little while to figure that out.
Well, for me, there's two more elements to it, Nestor. The first element is the competitive element, right? So, like our good friend Ric Flair says, if you want to be the man, you got to beat the man. There was nothing stopping Orlando Brown Jr. In getting in the best shape of his life, coming in and dethroning Ronnie Stanley at left tackle, and making perhaps forcing the Ravens to trade Ronnie Stanley to another team. That way, he can be the left tackle for the hometown Ravens, right? And the second thing for me, the trade reeks and smells of Trojan horse-like, right? Here's you give the enemy your biggest foe, the biggest obstacle to getting to the Super Bowl, a player that you think you can beat, a player that you think you can put one of your players up against.
If they thought Orlando Brown was great, they wouldn't have given him to Patrick Mahomes.
Absolutely,
No
they would have held on to him, right? They would have held on to him for one more year, forced him to play.
Given the Pittsburgh Steelers a player to help Jerome Bettis and Ben Roethlisberger beat us.
Look, we gave them.
That's who they are now. They are the Steelers, right?
We gave them Chris Wormley last I checked, and I don't even know if he's still in the league. Okay, so you don't give your competitors a player that you think can beat you, a team that you're going to have to face over and over again, unless you think you can beat that player. And let's keep in mind, Orlando Brown Jr. getting a huge contract, not a given. He has to play his butt off this year. He has to prove that he can protect Patrick Mahomes' blind side, or guess what? He'll be a free agent after 1 year. So this is a one-year rental for them.
Guess what he'll be? A right tackle.
He'll be a right tackle. Right. Because that's all he is. He's a right. You can't make him what he's not. Now, Patrick Mahomes gets rid of the ball quickly, but still, as we saw in the Super Bowl, if your offensive line, if your tackles, if your line doesn't hold up, it doesn't matter how quick your release is, you're going to be running for your life. And I suspect, and believe me, I don't wish anyone any ill will, including Orlando Brown Jr. I don't know him, but you know what? I've got to see it. I've got to see how it plays out. But based on his combine, based on his performance in the Ravens system, I think has been a big beneficiary of that. And the Ravens, I think, got better, got the best of the Chiefs in this deal, and time will tell, right? We'll see within a few games whether who fleeced who, right? But the Ravens got great draft capital for a player that they were not going to re-sign. That's for sure.
Dennis Koulatsos is here. He'll be here on Thursday with some great wisdom as well and getting you ready for the draft. And then on Sunday, let's go through the draft now for a minute, because, I mean, you and I have been at this a while, talking about players in 27, 27, 27. Now it's 27, 31, some back picks, some next year picks, all this stuff. No right tackle, but maybe Villanueva, maybe they're going to – they know what they're going to do. For us to sit here and guess as to what – there's very little question to me that they evaluated this draft on the offensive line and thought, well, if we get a pick back, either 27 or 31, we're going to get this, or that. And they have it pegged at this point that they know sort of kind of what they can get with 27 or 31. And also what would happen if somebody falls out of the top 8 into 16 or 18. They now have some firepower to move around and go get the guy they really want at center, at right tackle, at pass rush, or edge rush, or even at wide receiver, dare I say. They're a fascinating team into the draft now, right? Like, all of a sudden, they're almost as sexy as the Browns for the draft, right?
They're extremely sexy. Bill Polian said a long time ago that they're about 16 to 17 great players in any given draft class. And after that, then they're all about the same, right? So this is the reason why the Ravens got Marlon Humphrey. We all scratch our heads, why take a corner? Because he was a player that deserved to be drafted where he did. They have these players identified. So to me, they're going to go best player available, either 27, 31, or if they have to trade up. If I'm Eric DeCosta, though, I'm more apt to keep both of these picks, Nestor, because keep in mind, they keep that fifth-year option. And just like Lamar Jackson, should these players pan out, you do get control of these players for one more year. And my objective would be to come out with two starters with picks at number 27 and 31, whether it's an interior offensive lineman, a right tackle, a safety, a wide receiver, an edge rusher. But that would be the way that I would have my board stacked up.
Think about the picks we've had in that range, whether
absolutely.
It's the Ed Reed, the Todd Heaps, the
Ray Lewis.
Those. Yeah, right. Thank you. Sorry.
I mean,
Ray Lewis and then the rest of those guys.
We've had some picks though, because again, as these players drop, and that's the whole thing. If you've got that pick sitting there, and now it's even better than ever because of that fifth-year option, I'd be more apt to stand still and make those picks. I like quality over quantity. They have 9 picks already, Nestor. They don't need 9 players.
Well,
on
the way
roster.
they look at 27 and 31, they look at it as starter. We're going to get a starter. We're going to get a starter. Like that's how they look at it, and we're going to get better starters than picking in the 50s or 60s. They must love this draft too, right? Like Jeff Zrebeck and I did an hour of great radio last week. It was before the trade. We both poo-pooed the fact that Orlando Brown would be dealt because we didn't think anybody would be foolish enough. Literally, I'll say this to the Kansas City. I didn't think anyone would be foolish enough to come in and do this. And everybody was saying, I think you said 2 weeks ago, no, it only takes one. It only takes one, and it was the Chiefs, right? So I peed on it. But Zrebeck and I went back and forth about the Ravens' competitive advantage in having a scouting staff when there weren't games. There's not a lot of tape. There's not a combine, Senior Bowling, and all the weird stuff that they've done for 25 years as a group, that they should have, along with a couple of other staffs, the Saints, the Steelers, some teams have been together for a period of time, to really nail this kind of a draft. And now they put powder in the keg. And if you watched the Liars Luncheon last week, Jeff and I were talking about sort of reading where Eric DeCosta's giving you a little bit more information if you're more astute. Part of this was they don't feel like they have a lot of roster spots, right? They don't want 12 picks this year. They want to get 4 or 5 of these guys to make the team. Like they're not of the mindset of we need to get 12 guys in here. We're not a 2-14 team looking for bodies. We're looking for starters here, contributors, not maybe you'll run a little special teams. Worry about that on Saturday. But I think, to your point, this team has needs on the O-line, needs at a wide receiver, and whether Duvernay is going to be that guy or not, and serious need at rush edge. So knowing that, I'm with you. They're not trying to deal back. They're trying to get 3 or 4 really good football players. And if they can do that, this is a really successful draft.
Yep. I mean, I've got some names highlighted. Tevin Jenkins, the Oklahoma State offensive tackle. Rashad Bateman, the wide receiver. Azeez Ojulari, the edge rusher from Georgia. Landon Dickerson, there's a name for us, Nestor, the center from Alabama. A lot of wear and tear on him, but if you can get 2 or 3 or 4 years out of this guy, he's an absolute plug-and-play mauler, instant starter at center. Trayvon Merrick, the safety out of TCU. Jalen Phillips, edge rusher from Miami. Caleb Farley, cornerback from Virginia Tech. Sure, he drops. So there's a lot of names that may be there at 27 and 31, and if they can get 2 starters at 27 and 31, this is a home run draft already for Eric DeCosta and company.
Are you worried about the O-line? No. I would say you mentioned Alabama and center. Well, Bradley Bozeman's a name that came up last week. That was his natural position. He hasn't played it. I'm fascinated to think whether when they go to bed they feel like Bozeman's going to be the center, because if they do, then if that's the feeling, fair enough. Then you're not going to draft the center. If you feel like Villanueva is going to, you're going to sign the other guy to play right tackle. You have a veteran Thank you. If you're going to have a veteran offensive line, if that's where it's going to be, and you're going to draft the best offensive lineman on the board at 31, 27 or whatever, and you bring that player in, I'll hear that all day. I don't know enough about how they feel about Tyree Phillips and the bodies that they already have, and including Duvernay, which brings up the wide receiver thing. And we've talked about that for a couple of months, but they should feel good about him. This time last year, they brought him in.
Yeah. Well, I have to circle back to the offensive line, Nestor. I think they realize that they have to get this offensive line from a plotting, Orlando Brown Jr. type of players with bad feet that are just maulers, right, to a line that can pass block as well as they can run block. And Kevin Zeitler, I thought, was a great step in that direction. Here's a player that can pass block, run block, do it all. So I do think they need to change how that offensive line behaves. Ronnie Stanley's a dancing bear. He can sure pass block, but they need to give Lamar Jackson time in obvious passing situations. It's just not about getting the wide receiver. It's about giving your quarterback time. We saw how pedestrian Patrick Mahomes looked behind a porous offensive line in the Super Bowl with all of that firepower that he had, only managed 9 points. So it does begin and end with the big uglies up front. Offensive line, defensive line. If they draft an offensive lineman and a defensive lineman in the first round with both picks, you can bet that I'll be a very happy camper. They can wait on wide receiver because this is a very deep draft in wide receivers. Yet they can get a good one in the third or fourth round if that's the direction they want to go towards.
That is Koulatsos here. He'll be here on Thursday from 3 until 5, driving you home. He's over Coons Ford. He's over Security Boulevard, ready to sell you a pre-loved or new car. A lot of pre-loved cars, right? Like, I mean, it's been a weird year in the car industry for getting any sort of material. I'm hearing about wood now, right? I mean, nobody can find lumber. There's all of the year later after the pandemic. Give me a little look at the car industry as we get into spring and summer here.
Yeah.
Other than ragtops being more fun than not.
Look, cars this year are the same thing that the toilet paper was last year. Scarcity, right? Scarce supply. And right now it's if you've got a car to sell, you're in good shape. You have a car to trade in, you're in good shape. But the new models are coming out slow because of shortages at the factories. There's, the supply chain has been compromised, and just like lumber, just like homes, they're hard to find, hard to get. So if you can find that car, make a move on it today because chances are it will not be there tomorrow. That's the honest truth.
Pre-loved, and he's there on Thursday for us here and on Sunday, but over Coons Ford all week long. And of course, if there's any more deals, we get those first on the WNST text service. And for you with the draft this weekend, is there anything? I mean, do you stay home or you want give me a little primer for what your Friday and because this is a little bit like this is a high holy holiday for you. This is the big deal.
Yeah, I like to be by myself in my man cave. I've got all my charts, my graphs. I've got 2 or 3 TV sets going, and I love it, Nestor. I love it just as much.
I want to see a picture of this, like Cliff Kingsbury. I want to see.
Oh my God! It's quite the setup. I like to lock in and focus on the draft, and it's a lot of fun. I didn't do as many mock drafts as I used to. Back in the day, it was me and Kuiper and a couple of other guys. But now everybody does a mock draft. There's mock draft simulators all over the web, and so I've gotten I'll do 1 mock draft this year, 1 mock draft only.
I will mock everyone else's mock drafts. I look at them all. I mean, they're all interesting, and but the Ravens, there's no consensus whatsoever on 27. And now I saw like Zrebeck and everybody else has to go back and redo their thing because of 31 now. So and rethink this now without Orlando Brown and rethinking are they going to sign a 32-year-old right tackle and what direction are they going to go in? This is the most fun I've had as a sports fan since the last time, since the Buffalo game. Well, that wasn't fun. Since the Tennessee game, that was fun.
No, it's a lot of fun. And also the trade between the Ravens and the Chiefs also affects the board in front of them because teams like the Jets and the Chiefs that are picking before the Ravens now, they could have been thinking about trading back to pick a player they like towards the end of the first round, but now they can't do that. Now they've got to actually make a pick because that player, chances are, with the Ravens sitting there, and both the Jets and the Titans have some similar needs as the Ravens do. The Titans at edge rusher and wide receiver, so they don't have the luxury of trading back anymore. So that trade has the domino effect, right? It does affect the teams in front of the Ravens and the Chiefs.
They will be talking about the Ravens all night on Thursday night and into the weekend as we get some picks. It's football season. I want to go hang out at the Rams war room. Did you see that? They built their war room up in Malibu overlooking the cliffs. I think they
Nice.
didn't want to be outdone by Cliff Kingsbury. So
You know what? I'd rather be in the Ravens draft room and see what the Costa and you some of those guys think about and how they have the board stacked, right? And Peter King also did a nice job this morning. His article of talking about the Ravens and how they view the draft, how they're different than the other organizations.
well, yeah, and Pete came on with us as well at Baltimore Positive and talked
Nice
about that.
job.
So, but before the trade, so we sound foolish talking about Orlando Brown. They'll never trade him.
Yeah.
Don't sleep on Eric DaCosta. Don't sleep on Coon Sport. Dennis is here. You can find him on Thursday from 3 until 5. I'll be joining him. We'll be getting you ready for a big Thursday night. Hopefully, everybody has plenty of beer, food, everything that they need by them. And I do miss the Saturdays, though, right? There was something.
Yeah.
I like it equally. I mean, I'm not against it this way. It's dragged out. It's better. But Saturday was fun. Like, that was a gear up, right?
It really was. As a draftnik, you know what? I miss it. The merrier, right? The more, the better. The more, you know what? Saturday was always a big day for me.
Well, Saturday was great because we literally would set up shop in a restaurant bar. We would bring players out. We'd eat crabs. We'd do mock drafts. We'd all have our sporting news guides or our Mel Kiper, the blue books that Mel Kiper used to mail
Yep.
out. You know, I still have those around the place. 25 years into this, 25 years since we drafted Ray Lewis.
Yeah. It's been a lot of fun, and even
How
before
do
that
I
was
look
fun.
this young? It's not. Is that possible?
That's right.
He is, it's because the Ravens win and don't give me silver hair.
That's
We are
right.
WNST.net AM 1570, and we never stop talking Baltimore positive.